Well, welcome to the first of 4 training sessions on Lutheran Service Builder. Today's session is the introductory session for service planning and global search. My name is Tim Burke, and I'm going to be the presenter today. I'm a software support technician here at Concordia Technologies Solutions, and helping me out today in support is Taylor Brown. She's also a software support technician here at Concordia, and she'll be manning the behind the scenes questions that some of you may have throughout the session. So the product that we're talking about today, just for a brief introduction, most all of you already are using the product, but there are some that might be new secretaries at churches or people just viewing this video further into the future, a year from now. And we just want to say that this product, Lutheran Service Builder, is a web-based program that allows churches to quickly plan services, create their custom bulletin interiors, export presentations and playlists, and conform with copyright requirements. The training sessions that we have scheduled, this first one, Service Planning and Global Search, will be the introduction. Tomorrow, what we have on tap is everything about creating bulletins and bulletin formats. So make sure that you attend that particular session if that is one of your responsibilities. On Wednesday, we'll be talking about PowerPoint presentations and presentation formats. So if that's something that you use in your church sanctuary, you might want to attend on Wednesday. And then finally, on Thursday, we'll be covering all of my worship resources and other add-ons that are available in the application. So we've got a good set of 4 days of trainings here that are available to you. Make sure that you get signed up or can attend as many of those as you can. But today's focus will be on service planning and global search. All right, just a few housekeeping steps here. First of all, I plan for about 50 minutes for presentation, and then we'll have 10 minutes at the end of the hour for any questions that come through. I do want to mention that all attendees of today's presentation are muted, and you can ask your questions throughout the presentation. Just type them into the questions window there on your side of things. That's why we have Taylor here to answer some of those questions. And then depending on what time we have at the end, I may address some of those questions here in the presentation as well. And just as a reminder, there will be a recording and that will be shared afterwards. You might need to give us a couple days to get that edited and available, but we'll be sending you a link when the series completes. All right, our training goal today, by the end of today, you will know how to set up your Lutheran Service Builder program account and plan your first worship service. The outline consists of, we're going to talk about the trial application and licenses. We're going to then go into settings and account settings and users, inviting other users to be a part of the application so that you can collaborate together on building your services from week to week. We'll also look at the calendar view and what's available there. Then we'll drop into the service plan and spend some time talking about just planning for services into the future. And then we'll also touch on global search, which is a very flexible way of searching the database here in Lutheran Service Builder. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First, we'll talk about licenses. So one of the licenses that we have is the trial version. That is free. There's no charge to that, and we'll get into a little more detail about the trial in a moment. Then we also have our software license. That's a license for the application itself and allows you to use the application. Then there is one additional license, the hymn license. So if you plan to either display hymns with their melody form, their text, maybe present them through PowerPoint presentations, you'll need to have that license. And then there are several add-ons that we have, and we're not going to spend time on those today. That will be more geared for Thursday's session, but we've got Concordia Organist, which is an add-on and license in itself, excuse me, that we'll talk about on Thursday, along with One and All Rejoice, the new hymnal that Concordia Publishing House has put out, more of a youth type of hymnal. And then finally, Creative Worship, which is one of our worship resources that you can also subscribe to, and that is linked in here with the Lutheran Service Builder application if you so choose. So the trial license itself is free. It is read-only access to everything in the software. So you're able to see, search hymns, search lectionary, search prayers. You can do all of that with the trial. And the nice thing about that is that there is no time limit in the trial. So if you're a pastor that maybe the church can't afford a subscription, but you still want to make use of all of the search capabilities within the product, you may want to sign up for a trial and have that available. It also is formatted very nicely to where you can use that on your phone as well. So if you're out and about and you just need to search prayers, hymns within Lutheran Service Builder, that is certainly an option. There is no ability to export. That's the trial, since there is no expense to it. The licensing and the copyrights don't allow us to allow you to export any of the content, but you can still view it all. And there are no rights to reproduce or use the content from within Lutheran Service Builder. Now, our next option up is the software license, and that gives you full access to the software itself. This is kind of where churches begin. That does give you the rights to print and use the liturgy right out of Lutheran Service Builder, and you can create your bulletins. Gives you the rights to print and use public domain hymns. Now, many of the hymns are copyrighted, but there are a bunch that are public domain hymns, and those you're able to use through just the software license itself. And this also gives you the rights to stream and upload video recordings to whatever media source you might be using, YouTube, etc. From there, we've got the hymn license. Now, the hymn license, you must have the software license to be able to use Lutheran Service Builder first. And then when you add the hymn license, that gives you the rights to print most of the hymns, with a few exceptions that are included in the license agreement. When you sign that, there's, I think, a total of maybe 9 hymns that there are some exceptions from being able to use them either in bulletin form or in presentation form. But that will be in your hymn license. And then it does give you the rights to stream and upload video recordings and where you've used the hymns in those recordings. So those are the main 2 licenses, software license and hymn license, along with the trial. So now let's go to the product itself, and the URL or web address that you want to use is printed there on your screen. It's app.lutheranservicebuilder.com. You don't need to capitalize the letters of Lutheran Service and Builder. I just did that to help kind of give some separation of words there, but it's all strung together without spaces. Just type that into your browser and you will arrive at the application itself. So let me get things fixed up here to where we can then get right to Lutheran Service Builder. So we've arrived here at app.lutheranservicebuilder.com, and what you first see is the calendar on the display. And what we want to talk about here first is signing into the program. And so the sign in option is here up in the upper right corner of your screen, sign in. I'm going to click on that. And that gives us the sign in options. Now, you'll be just giving your email address that you created your account with, along with your password, and then we'll click sign in here in just a moment to get into the program. But if you are using this for the first time, there is a link here at the bottom where you can create an account, and that will then create that trial account that we talked about there in the beginning with licenses. I'm going to go ahead and sign into the program here, clicking on sign in button. All right, and we do arrive here on the calendar. You'll know that you're signed in when you no longer see the sign in prompt in the upper right corner. You now see a gear along with a magnifying glass. That's our global search option. So let's go ahead and jump into the settings gear icon here in the upper right. So when you click on that, you'll see, you should see your name along with the email address that you sign in with. Underneath that will be a link to get back to the calendar view that we arrived on when we signed in. Then there is a quick link to search. This search option here in the menu is the same as this global search here, the magnifying glass, clicking on that. Underneath that is our My Worship resources, where you can create custom content in your application. We'll get into many of those items on Thursday. The next item down is import from LSBX file. Now this was something, it's a little bit more outdated now. This was something we used as we were transitioning from Lutheran Service Builder 2 to this new online Lutheran Service Builder. So many of the LSBX files really aren't created anymore, but if there are any that you have from the past, you'd still be able to import those through that option. Next in the menu is bulletin formats. We'll talk about that tomorrow. The next item down is presentation formats. That's like PowerPoint presentations. We'll cover that on Wednesday. And then here are the account settings, which I want to run through today. But before we jump into that one, let's just go to preferences. That one's a quick one here. When you go to preferences, that's where you can put in your first name and your last name, as well as it will show the email address that you use to sign into the product. If your email address ever changes, you change email providers, you can come to this window then to update that email address that you sign in with. But we do appreciate if you put in your first and last name here under preferences. That way when we interact with you, either through chat or through email, your name will be listed with that inquiry that you make for support. So we'd appreciate that. When you fill in your name or make any changes to the screen, in the lower right corner of the screen is the save button as well as a cancel button. And that way you can save your changes. I'll go ahead and click the X here. Let's see, I'm going to increase the size, just magnify it a little bit. There we go. All right, so let's go back to the gear, and now let's talk about account settings. So here in the account settings view, this is where you set up your account. The first item here will be the church name. This is a text entry field, so type in the name of your church. Let's see, let me make one quick change here. I apologize. I don't want to have the intrusion of those extensions that I have. Just give me a moment here. So sorry. All right, I think I've got that all taken care of now. So when you click in a field, you can then just fill in your church name and then click save to save that change. Next down is locations. And so most churches might just have the one location. I know sometimes pastors might serve 2 congregations in the area, so you could create a location for each one. In this case, what I have in my demo church here is a church location with the 3-year lectionary and a church location of the same name with the 1-year lectionary. Now, most churches usually use the 3-year lectionary, and there's maybe 10% or less that use the historic 1-year lectionary, but this is where you make that selection. So when you add a location to your account, you fill in the church name, and then the drop-down list right under here is where you choose that 1 year or 3 year lectionary. You can always come back here to account settings and change it to the other lectionary if you'd like for your one location there, but you can do the same thing that I did to here as well and create a location for each. And then underneath, let's see, let's bring that back up. Underneath that option here of new location then is also the default number of services per week for in-person worship. So if you have 2 services on a Sunday morning, you can certainly click on 2 times, and that will set like the default for your usage. If you have a Saturday night service and 2 Sunday morning, you would then change that to 3, as long as for the most part your services are all the same among all 3 services. Then you can set that in-person worship count right here under the location. Underneath that is users. So right now, I'm the only user of this account and I'm the owner, and it will display the email address. As you add additional people to your church account, you'll then have a longer list of users in this section here. And the very next section here, invitations, is where you invite those additional people. And so if you were going to invite either maybe a pastor, organist, music director, other staff, you can click on the link here for new invitation. I'll just type in my colleague here, Taylor Brown. And all I need to do then is click send, and then that sends my colleague Taylor Brown an invitation to be part of Lutheran Service Builder, this church account here, and that's where you would also invite others in your church staff to the application. Now, once Taylor acknowledges that email that she gets and clicks on the link and provides a password, then her email address as well will move up here to the users section, and it would then say Taylor Brown with her email there, and it would then be a user account. Let's see if, give me a moment here to check if Taylor is online with me right now. All right, I was just going to see if I could have her follow up on that invite and answer it back so that we can see the name, how it moves from this bottom section of invitations up to the users. If you're listening, Taylor, if you could do that, that would be great. And if not, we'll continue on here. So in the licenses section, this is not your Lutheran Service Builder license. This is more for third-party licenses. So if you happen to have, I know many churches use CCLI, for copyrighted material and worship songs. So this is where you would add third-party licenses like that. So we could click on the link to add a license. We could type something like CCLI, and then you would provide the license number that they give you. Now, this is not a license number that they've given, but let's just say that's my license today. And I would click save. And now that CCL license is in the database where I can refer to it when I export some of that CCLI content that I use, so that we cover all aspects of copyrights and match that up. So this is where you would put your third-party licenses. Underneath that is the content subscriptions. And we'll talk about this more later on in the week on Thursday. This is where you can access and add subscriptions, additional add-ons like the One and All Rejoice hymnal, the new hymnal that Concordia Publishing House put out, and more of a children's hymnal. Then there's also the creative worship. Many of you are probably familiar with that, and that's more of a just a self-contained type of order of worship through the creative worship subscription. And then finally, there is also the Let Us Pray content subscription. We'll talk about that as well on Thursday. And this is a free subscription, so you'd be able to add that at any point in time. In fact, I can click on that this morning during our training here, And you'll then be given two options here. This adds the free subscription of Let Us Pray to Lutheran Service Builder. And I can check the box to include those prayers in all of my orders of services on a weekly basis automatically. So they'll just appear in your order of service, the ones that were published for that week. And then I can also click the box there to include in the search panel as we get into that a little bit later on. You can have one or the other checked if you'd like, or both of them checked just to make use of that free subscription. Then the last item down here is the danger zone. And so this is what will delete your account. You want to stay away from the danger zone for the most part, unless there comes a time when you just don't want to use Lutheran Service Builder anymore, or maybe you have a trial account that you just want to delete. You can come to the account settings here. Once you're logged into your account, click on the link here to delete my account, and that will take it off, but out of our database as well. But there is no point of return at that point, the point of no return, I should say. And so you do want to be very careful about clicking that. Any changes that you've made on the screen, then all you need to do is click save to save those changes. Let me refresh my page here. And okay, so Taylor must not have been on with me and heard that request to go ahead and answer that invite, but her name would have been up here along with mine, just like it would be for your church, pastor's name, the secretaries, the music director, the organist, anyone who has answered that invitation would then appear under users there. All right, that's pretty much it for account settings then and users. Let's go ahead and click the X in the upper right corner and talk about the calendar here. So a couple things here in the navigation bar in the upper left corner, we've got the cross here. That is actually a way of returning to this home view, the calendar view. So if I was anywhere else in the program, we'll maybe make use of it later on, but just clicking on that cross would bring us right back here to the monthly view. We can navigate through our months just by clicking on the bracketed arrows here. This is taking us back to May, back to April. We can move forward in time, forward to May, and then forward to the current month of June. You can see here that on the current day, the 12th here, that all of the previous days in the calendar have been kind of grayed out here. That gives you visually a way of focusing in on where you are, and then any planning that you do for the future will then be in the normal white background there. In the upper right corner of the calendar is our location selector. So if you remember under settings, I had two locations, and I could then click between a 3-year lectionary or for my church, the 1-year lectionary. And if I went to 1 year, then that would show the calendar for the 1-year lectionary. If I choose and select 3-year, it will show the lectionary for 3 years in the calendar view. Now, that's just the way I'm using it. Your church, or if you are a pastor who has multiple churches that you cover, you could have a location for each of those, however many that is, 2 churches, 3 churches, and you could have a location for each and then be able to plan services for any of those churches separately with our own separate calendar. So locations is just something to be aware of if you have more than one. Make sure you're in the right location. All right, as we look here on the calendar, and if I went to other months as well, occasionally you might see some of these services or church holidays that got a little more of a bolder text to it than just a standard text. Everything that has bold text means that I have been in that service and a service plan is already created for that service. So anything that is not in bold, let's go to June here, then Pentecost 3 has not been worked on, has not been planned yet. So that, as compared to yesterday's service, the second Sunday after Pentecost, that's in bold. So that shows that I have worked with that service and created a service plan. So that's the meaning of the bold type there. Now I can do really one of two things. I can click on any of these church holidays and it will open up then that particular holiday for the church. I'll click on Pentecost 3 next Sunday, and then that will open up a propers view for that particular Sunday. You'll notice here that it shows June 18th at the top, third Sunday after Pentecost, which is proper number 6A in the 3-year lectionary. It then lists your readings. This is the Old Testament reading for next Sunday. And as we scroll down, it then shows the Psalm along with the antiphon in verse 5. Then it will show us the epistle here as well, scheduled for next Sunday, the gospel reading in Matthew. And sometimes there are 2 gospel readings for a Sunday. Then we've got the introit towards the bottom of the screen. It also lists the collect of the day, the gradual, the verse, as well as the hymn of the day. That is the one hymn that is part of the lectionary. So it's number 571 is in the lectionary for next week. So this is a propers view, which allows you to look over the readings of what's going to be coming up for that particular day. This is also a view that if you're using a Lutheran Service Builder on a phone, you'd be able to review the readings for next Sunday as well. And just gives you kind of a very top upper parent level look at what's coming up on that particular holiday. Now you'll notice here on the left that there is a column. Our calendar now is turned into a column, and so we're right here where it's highlighted in blue, Pentecost 3. And I could click on Pentecost 4 as well and see the propers for proper 7A, June 25th. We could go into July, click on Pentecost 5 and see those propers. So you can see where being able to plan ahead and review the readings that are coming up to plan your worship service can be very beneficial from this particular view. Let's go back to next Sunday, Pentecost 3. Now that we've kind of covered what's in this propers view, let's also point out that in the upper right corner is a button to plan the service. So if you're ready to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of this particular week of this service, we can click on that button there. And it takes us into this service plan view. Let me mention once again, I mentioned the cross earlier. We can click on the cross. That will take us right back to the calendar view. Now, since I did open up a service plan for next Sunday, now you'll notice that the text is in bold, so you'll see those changes. Let's click right on that holiday, and this time it will take us right past the propers view into the service plan, and that's what these tabs are here at the top. Even though we've dropped into the next view service plan, we can always go back to the propers view here on the tabs at the top for this third Sunday of Pentecost. All right, so this particular view, this is not planning the specifics of where things go in your service. The service plan is more for bringing the resources together, what you plan to possibly use in the service, possibly sometimes, even a couple months in advance. So this is bringing together readings from the lectionary, but you can add your own. It's bringing together hymns that you may or may not use on a particular week. It's choosing the order of service, adding any additional rites to your plan, and it will also give the in-person worship plan that you plan to have that particular week, as well as any notes that you might have. So let's drop into each of these in more detail. So since this is the 3-year lectionary, for the readings, it's pulling in those for proper 6A already. But if you did want to add any readings of your own, if there was an additional reading, you can simply click on the link to add a reading. And what that does is it opens up a search panel then on the right side. And you'll see this for most all of these sections here. You can It will once again show the readings for Proper 6A at the top, as well as links to the previous week's readings. If you wanted to review those that were used last week, you can click on that link and it will show you those options. We'll refresh the search page here, the search panel, and get back to this. It will also show the readings for next week. So if you need just a review of what's being planned on Proper 7, you can review that. And you can also plug in any particular reading that you might want to use. Let's just say, I don't know, Romans 5, 6 to 15. You can plug in the chapter, the verse, press enter, and it would then give you that particular, the verse, chapter and verse that you input, along with where those verses are used in other parts of the lectionary, in other seasons as well. If you wanted to preview what you've entered in here, there is a preview button in the upper right corner of this search panel. And this again is consistent across all the sections here. When you're using the search panel, you're able to preview what you typed in. I can click the preview button and it slides open and shows me the scripture verses that I typed in, and I can review that. And you can even adjust the verses if you want, and then press enter, and it would, if there were more verses there, offhand, I didn't see it really change here, so it might have just been the extent of 15. But you get the idea. You can change your scripture verses in the search panel. If I want to close that preview, I can click the collapse or hide the preview, and it will go back to my view here of the service plan in the main window with the search panel on the right. I can click on the refresh to clear my search view, and you'll see that what I typed in has been added to the list. And if I make a mistake, I can always click the X to remove that specific reading. In that same way that readings worked is how we also add hymns. So when I click on the link here to add a hymn for planning this service, the search panel will open up, and this time it knows that I've clicked the add hymn link, so it's displaying hymns that are suggested here. For Proper 6A, since it knows the week I'm working with, it's going to show me the hymn of the day that was suggested from the lectionary, 571. It also lists 834. And then based on the readings in the lectionary, it will then show hymns that go along with the readings. So there's a section here of a number of different hymns. And then underneath that is other suggested hymns as well. So if you wanted to add a hymn, let's say I do want to add the hymn of the day, so I'll click right here in the search panel on 571. And then once I've clicked on it, you'll see that it has added it to the list. If I want to add some more hymns, I click the link once again, add hymn, and let's just use some of these other hymns that are suggested for the readings. We'll choose 586. I'll add another hymn. We'll then go to Hark the Voice of Jesus Calling, 827, and then also use 572. We'll just take those top three suggestions there. And you'll notice now that my hymn section for my service plan has accumulated those four. Now, I'm not putting them in the service where they belong yet. That comes tomorrow when we're talking about creating bulletins and bulletin formats. But I'm, again, just bringing the resources together that I'm going to use in my service. Then next section is the order of service that we need to choose. Oh, let's see, before I move there, with hymns. So let's say I do choose a hymn like 572. Once again, going to the preview button here at the top, I can click on that and it will show us a preview of that hymn in text form, however many verses there are. I then have another tab here at the top to show the melody, and that will give those the top four verses in with the melody, the staff, and then the final two verses here at the bottom, 5 and 6. And next to that melody tab is a little play button. So you can actually review that melody. Let me click on play. Might not be able to hear that as well. But that's playing a MIDI sample of that hymn, so you can then decide if that's the hymn that you were looking for based on the melody. Let me go ahead and click the stop button now, which then replaces that play button. And next to that is also a little tab for information about the hymn. So if you click on that, you'll find out who the author of the text was and the date, 1955. You'll find out that the tune of the hymn was written by this person in that time frame there. And then it includes copyright information on the text, who it's administered by. This one's administered by us here at Concordia Publishing House. The tune, though, is public domain, and so that is you're able to play and reproduce. It's available for public. Then we've got a section here for melody. It's got another play button here, so clicking that play button will play just that little simple melody just like it did from the tab up here. It also gives the tune name, the meter, the key that it's in, which are all important information, I'm sure, for musicians and your organist, your music director, etc. It also lists related topics that this hymn fits nicely into, the Lord's Supper, justification. Those are also links, so it would take you to show you other hymns that are good for the Lord's Supper or for that topic of justification. And then it goes into related scriptures. So for each of the stanzas, they are written based on certain scripture verses. So this is showing that stanza 1 is associated with those scripture verses, stanza 2 with these, on down the line here for each and all of the stanzas. So there's a lot of information to be given here for hymns. It even gives a section here of when it's suggested on Proper 6. That's where we are for next week, and that's why it displayed this hymn as a suggestion, but it shows where else in lectionaries, Series B, Series C, in the 1 year where this hymn is suggested to be used. So that's all available in the preview of the hymn. Once again, clicking on the little button here to hide the preview will take us back then to that search panel. The next section down, let's move there, order of service. We click on the word empty, and in the search panel then it is showing us all of our options for order of services, the 5 divine services here that you can select any of those on. I'll select divine service setting 3, let's say, for this particular service, but it also lists some of the other orders of service for like daily office, matins, vespers. You get down here further to other services like funeral services, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, daily prayer, seasonal rites, Ash Wednesday, Holy Baptism. So there's just a number of orders of service that you can select from, even the rites and blessings. Let's say if I selected, let's go back up here to funeral. Once again, in the search panel, we could click preview, and it's going to preview the funeral service for us. So we'd be able to scroll through that to see if that's the service that we want to use, maybe during a weekday service. You know, I know I've clicked on the Sunday holiday, but you can click really on any day in the calendar to create a service and find your order of service there. We'll go back to hiding the preview, and let me go back to selecting divine service setting 3. That's now placed there. Additional rites section, we click on the link once again, and then it displays here in the search panel additional rites to use. So once again, you've got other services, the litany, prayer rites, seasonal rites, baptism, confirmation, membership, pastoral care, marriage, Christian burial, holy ministry, etc. Let's go ahead and we'll add holy baptism as a rite to our service for this next Sunday. And then we scroll down to usage. This is somewhat of a newer feature, more recently added, and this is picking up what we set up in our account settings for the location. And so there it is showing that we plan just to use this in one in-person worship service on a Sunday morning. If I had an early and late service as well, then I would want to change that to 2 times. I'd probably also change it in my account settings as well to always show up with 2 times. And then here under notes, you can, this is really just an open-ended text box. So you can add any additional notes that you'd like. If you are collaborating with other church staff there, and maybe a pastor has input, the secretary has input, the organist has input into the service, you can then leave notes for each other right here in the notes section. So sermon, you could put something like sermon topic is on forgiveness, and then that would be saved here in the notes for the others then to see. The music director might say we have a piece of special music, and maybe that involves the handbells. And so there's little notes that you can type in this note box, and it will grow. The note box will for as many notes as you need to leave here in the box. And so know that you're not limited to the number of notes, but you can type in anything there that you'd like. At the bottom of the service plan, there is a way to change the name, the date, or the holiday of this particular service that you clicked on. So we could click on that, and that shows us that we could then maybe change the date from the 18th to a different day on the calendar if we needed to. We could change the holiday. And this is going to show you some of the other holidays that are around Pentecost 3 or Proper 6A. And so it's like, I think 10 days prior and 10 days further into the future as well, showing you some of those. So that's where it's showing you Pentecost 2 as well as Pentecost 4 in the list. And then also there might be other occasions. This is where you can select from a number of common occasions, like we talked about: funeral, day of Thanksgiving, Christian education, a wedding here at the bottom. And so you can make those selections here on any particular service as well. And then you can also change the name of the service. So maybe you don't like it spelled out third, but you could certainly put in the third Sunday after Pentecost if you'd like. Click Save Change, and then now you'll see that third appears here in the upper left corner. So those are ways of editing the name, the date, the holiday. If you wanted to make a copy of this service, you could do that. So we'll click on the link there, and let's just say, let's try that again. Let's just say this is a test. Click Save. And so now this has made a copy of that same service with all of my selections here in the plan under the name test. It has also added it to the calendar here on the left side, the column, which if we want to look at it in a monthly calendar view, you can see my third Sunday after Pentecost as well as my test. So it makes a copy of it. Maybe you have just some slight changes that you do to the service for the late service instead of the 11 o'clock service instead of the 8 o'clock service, you know, whatever that might be. You can make a copy, and most all of your selections are there then in the copy, and you can just make your minor tweaks for the second service. And then below that is the delete this service option. This is kind of like another danger zone. That's why it's printed there in red lettering, so that you know that you need that if you click this is the point of no return. That will remove this service from the database, and if you want to get it back, you'll have to recreate it. So be very careful if you make use of that option. All right, so that's our service plan view. That just brings the resources together for us then to make use of it tomorrow when we're talking about creating bulletins and bulletin formats. There is one more thing that I want to cover today, and that is the search option, the global search. We can just click on the magnifying glass there at the top, or once again, just reminding you there's the search option here as well under the settings gear. And so here in this particular global search option that we have on the screen, it's a very flexible search option that will search all of the database of Lutheran Service Builder, the hymns, the lectionary, the prayers, really just anything can be searched here. And you'll notice that when we click in the search field in the upper left corner, it gives us several examples of how to search here in this section here at the top. And then also ways to narrow your search in this section here at the bottom. So it gives you an example. You can search just by any words. You can type in Mighty Fortress, like is shown there. Press enter, and it's going to show you anywhere where those two words appear, either together or singly in the database. So we see the two references to results for hymns. A Mighty Fortress is our God 657, 656, as well as hymn 533 and 626, where the word mighty is used. It also shows up in our Let Us Pray as one of the words are used, Mighty Fortress, in the prayer for February 23rd. And also in the introit, the word fortress in this case is used in proper 4B. Now, if I wanted specifically just the words together the way they are, what I'd want to do there is encapsulate this phrase in quotes. That way it's searching in the database for Mighty Fortress together as a phrase. Pressing enter then filters out more of the other options and just gives you where Mighty Fortress is used. Now to clear this, well, I should say too, you can then click on any of these results and it will show the hymn. Once again, you got melody here, the information tab. We can click on the Let Us Pray option and it shows the prayers, the responsory prayers for that particular day. And so click on whatever result that you'd like to see. Let's go ahead and to refresh this search view, just click on the circular arrow here. That will clear the field, and then click your cursor or your mouse right in that field to get those helpful tips here once again. So as it said here, search exact phrases. So if you've got multiple words that you want to keep together in the search term, then go ahead and encapsulate them in double quotes there. You can search for Bible references. You can spell out the whole, Romans 8.1 to chapter 8, verses 1 to 2, or you can abbreviate it ROM, and it will pick up all of those search results as well. Clicking on any of these will then let me get back to the text there. There we go. The text tab will show you that that verse, or clicking on a hymn will show you the text of the hymn, the melody, etc. You get the idea. Let's refresh once again. And then you can also search just on a hymn number. So you can, just as it said there, type in 594, press enter, and then you've got the hymn listed here, as well as the number 594 is on one of the pages for prayers at the anniversary of an ordination. So it will show you that from page 594 as well, just by using a number here to search. Then you have ways of narrowing your search further. So if here is showing a pound sign, as many of you may call it, or a hashtag, if we type in a hashtag here up at the top, then it gives us yet more options to work with and narrow the search. So if we wanted to narrow a search just on hymns, we would have the hashtag, type in hymns, and then we could put out a space and then put 594, similar to what we did earlier. We could search hymns, I believe, for like the word salvation. And it's picking up in hymns where that word, we're using hashtag hymns, the word salvation. So it's narrowing our search just to hymns where that word is used. Other ways of narrowing our search, we can search by topic. And so we can type in topic, colon, and if I have a phrase like beginning of service, we could type in beginning. Got to type that correctly though. Beginning of service. If I see that, you know, here is the result down here at the bottom, but it's also lightly printed here at the top. If the one that I want is there at the top, I can just tab out of the field and it will make that selection, press enter, and it will show us, I used hashtag hymns, our topic. In this case, it's showing us the result for hymns at the beginning of the service. Let's see, let's go ahead and look at some of these other ones. You can search by tune name for those musicians out there that want to search the database based on tune, based on meter of a hymn. You can search on liturgy. So again, here, if you type in liturgy, it's going to give you some options, and you can see kind of what it's suggesting there to use a quote and then blessing of a cemetery, and you then would be able just to type that in and find those results as well. You can search by hymn author, and so if we were to type in author, let's just say Luther, then we get the results of all of the hymns that where Luther was the author in that case. So if you're doing a hymn sing on Martin Luther, you would use some type of search term like that. You can also search by copyright holder based on any particular holiday, any lectionary series, whether it's series A, B, or C. You can refine the search by that, as well as categories, the way that categories are used in the hymnals. And you can also stack any of these narrowing the search type of functions within your search field here at the top. So let's say that I wanted to do a holiday and I wanted it to be on proper 6, end the quote. And then I wanted to add a further narrowing the filter on series. And I use a colon here, series A. And then yet one other filter, let's say I wanted to use hashtag hymns. So what this is saying is that for proper 6, series A, I want to search hymns. I press enter, and this shows us the suggested hymns for proper 6A. And I did that with a number of different filtering options here to get just to those particular hymns. Maybe I wanted the prayers for that proper 6 holiday, series A, and then it shows the collect of the day. So you're able, this search option has a lot of different functionality built into it. Let's go back. I just thought of something else I wanted to show here. Let's refresh and let's go back to hymn 594. Any of these options in global search that you do choose, let's say this hymn, and we wanted text here, you'll notice that in the lower right corner are some like action buttons, I might call them, and you can choose the stanzas. If you want to remove some of those stanzas, you'll see as I click on them here in the stanza selector that it also then changes my result here in the display. If I then wanted to export this hymn out in text form, I could click export, choose Microsoft Word document, rich text format, or HTML. If I simply just wanted to print this out, I could do that. Or if I wanted to copy this option, I could do that as well. Let's say I wanted just the melody included for just stanzas 1 or 2, or let's maybe add stanza 3 in this case. It adds stanza 3 here. I could then click copy. I would need to choose the service that this is going to be used on, the date. When you click in that cell, it shows a pop-up calendar, as well as how many times that this hymn that I'm copying is being used. and then continue. And then that shows that that was copied. I could then open up Microsoft Word and simply paste that into my Word document. So for some of you secretaries who maybe have an order of service built in Microsoft Word, and all you do is pick and choose hymns and different service elements out of Lutheran Service Builder, you're able to do that here as well. And it is also tracking the usage then for you behind the scenes, because you're using this copy option here, or the print option, or export. So for any of those things that you've searched for in the global search, all of that is available here to export, print, or copy. Let's see, I think it's 10:56. Let's go ahead then, close this up and kind of wrap things up. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to show you today. That is basically the extent of search and also service planning. We'll get into more detailed planning of an individual service for bulletins tomorrow. Let me go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint presentation where we were once again. All right, so there are a number of ways to reach out to us for support. You can give us, or you can check our online help center. I'll need to show you where that is located. I'll get back to the application here in a moment. You can also reach us in-app chat, and also just by simply emailing us at support@cts.cph.org. The phone is listed there as 1-800-346-6120. You'll notice that is available Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 5 p.m. That is also mainly the time of the availability of our chat. I'll show you where you can see where that can be accessed as well. And let's actually go ahead and bring that up here. Back in our service, in the lower right corner of the application, you'll always see this circle with a letter I in there, the Information Center. When you click on that, you can search our help articles on, let's just say, bulletin, and press the Enter key, and it's going to give you some results, search results, the top 3 articles where bulletin is talked about. So you can use that to search on any search term you'd like. You then also have a link here at the bottom to start a chat, and when the chat function is available, we have a technician that's manning the chat channel. That phrase will be listed. If no one's in the chat channel at the time, then you won't see that phrase there. So it should be live if those words appear, and all you need to do is click on it, and you're chatting with a real person, not a computer. So I'm one of the people that's in the chat, as well as Taylor. You might be talking with her as well. And then there's the ability to send us your question just by clicking on the link of sending us a message. That will create an email where you fill in the subject line of your email as well as the question that you have, and then simply click send once you have those 2 fields populated, and we'll address your question and follow up with you via email as well. At the bottom of this email form is our 800 number. So that is always available here to get to the number just by going to the email form right here online. So that's all available here in a way of reaching out to us in support underneath that Information Center. Let's see here. Let's get through these. These are those 4 ways of reaching additional help. And then now we're going to take any questions and answers that you might have. It looks like there was quite a number of some questions here, and unfortunately, Taylor may not have made it to our webinar this morning. It looks like none of the questions were really addressed. So I might take just a few minutes. I'm going to review some of the questions, and if there's a good one here that might be beneficial to everyone, I'll go ahead and answer it here live. But if not, I'll go ahead and also follow up with you after the webinar this morning with an answer to that. But you can type in your questions into the go to webinar chat, our questions window there. Remember that a recording of today's session will be emailed within 48 hours, somewhere around that. Give us a little grace there to edit the videos and make them available. And then if you're watching this recording at a later date, you can simply send your questions into support@cts.cph.org. Let me review some of the questions here. And I know that we're limited in time. I do want to be yeah, we're right at 11 o'clock here. So I apologize. And we got a couple questions there just about some of the future training sessions in coming in the next couple days. So I'll get with you later on those. Yeah, Natalie said it would be nice to have a today button on the calendar. Yeah, I've heard that that feedback before, so that is a good one. I'll go ahead and put feedback in there for you, Natalie, as well. Many calendars have just a way of getting to today's date. Now, if you've set up a bookmark in your browser for Online Lutheran Service Builder, it really should, by default, just bring you to the calendar view once you've signed in with the current month and the current day right there on the calendar. But I know that as you navigate through months, it would be nice for that button. Yeah, Bethany asks, is there a reason that my content subscriptions don't show the One and All Rejoice hymnal or the creative worship? Yeah, I should have maybe brought that up and pointed that out, Bethany. In my demo account here, I am subscribed to those already, so it's showing on the list there for us to see. Now, for you to have that content as an option, you need to talk with your salesman about subscribing to that that subscription, and then it will appear in your account settings. I'm sorry I didn't make a point of bringing that out earlier, but yeah, you'll first need to have that subscription before it shows in the drop down. Let's see here. Just continuing to look through some of these. Looks like Christopher had a number of questions. I think I'll follow up with you, Christopher, separately, since you have a good 4 or 5 questions there, it looks like. Oh, maybe 6. You had some good questions. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Chris has left. He just asked about the recordings. Yeah, Natalie asked about lectionary summaries. I'm familiar with the term. It's just been a while since I've visited that particular question. I'll probably follow up with you, Natalie, on that as well. Chris asked another question. I'll get back with you, Chris, on your numerous questions there. Very good. It's good to see. Yeah, Tracy asked something here, which we do at times get questions about. And let me go back to Lutheran Service Builder on this one. So if you go to the propers, you'll notice that the readings here have verse numbers. But when you are using the global search, let me maybe just grab this Exodus chapter and verse. You'll see the verse numbers, verse 3, verse 4, verse 5. In this propers view, they show verse numbers. If you were to go to the search option here and we paste in that same scripture, you'll notice that in this view, they don't have the verse numbers. And that's some feedback that we've taken. because then when you use the action buttons at the bottom, you export, print, or copy, it's copying it without verse numbers. And so we designed it based on feedback we got from customers and churches, and a lot of times they just use this without the verse numbers in bulletins and other inserts and that type of thing. But in this case, what you could do then, and this kind of ties into tomorrow a little bit more, but if you were to go to prepare a bulletin and access the scripture, the Old Testament reading from there, the verse numbers are there, and you can just right click on the element from the bulletin, preparing a bulletin, and copy it from there with verse numbers, I believe. And so that would kind of be the workaround at this point in time until our design team thinks about adding numbers to the global search. I suppose you could also copy it right from here as well in the propers view. And I don't have Word up anymore. Let's see. And I believe that will paste in there with the verses. They're kind of small. One of the other options, I guess, in the paste, that's about the same as well, but you could get verse numbers out of there. Hopefully that might help you a little bit, Tracy. Yeah, Keith kind of had the same question, so hopefully that helps the two of you as you asked about that. All right, very good. Well, that ends this session today. I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. Remember, a recording will be made available and sent to you via email if you signed up for these training sessions. You don't have to have had attended in order to get those links. It will be sent to everyone who signed up to be a part of these sessions. So if there's one of the other training sessions later this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that you aren't able to attend, you'll still get a link to the recording of that session later, since you signed up for these webinars. So once again, just want to thank you so much for attending this morning. Let's see, there we go. I want to thank you for watching, thank you for attending, and hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Have a great day.